Hello everyone, it's Dmitry Anoshin and Surfalytics. This is the Model 3. The Model 3 is about business intelligence tools and data visualization. Today we'll talk about key components of any BI tool. And you already know about from the past lessons the difference between self-service BI tools and enterprise BI tools. And today we'll look deeper what the key elements of any BI tools. The Model 3 is the last for data analysis and business intelligence specialization. If you missed the beginning, you can find everything starting from Model 0, and there is Model 1, Model 2. And after the Model 3, we'll start doing data integrations and data engineering. By the way, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to support, if you want to participate in weekly projects, either for data analytics or data engineering, you can join our community where we do lots of different projects. We're also helping to build resume, sharing interviews, questions and tips. Let's get started with our lesson number 3.5. There is a kid's book talking about what are little boys made of and what are little girls made of. Today we will talk about what BI tools made of. And I highlighted the key areas that we will gonna through today. Starting from authentication and authorization, there could be client, as example Tableau desk, or could be server. The many modern SaaS cloud things, they don't have any client at all. There is semantic layer, visualization templates and tables, dimension, metrics, calculated fields, filters, hierarchies, parameters. Mailing means like how you're going to distribute your reports for email, for the Slack channels and so on. You can have the scheduling options to refresh your dashboards, or it could be potential alerts, preset database, service and files connection, API, statistical methods. Very often it could be simple forecasting, but with the rise of generative AI, now you can find more complicated use cases. There is often integrations with Python and R. Also, you can see the logs for the server and some other things what's happening under the hood. Let's start look to each of particular elements. BI client is the simplest thing. And if you talk about the BI tools like Tableau or Power BI, then they give you tool, the client, to download and install on your local machine where you can start do development and then you can publish to the server. This is example of Tableau dashboard, and you can download Tableau desktop. Then authentication. For authentication, there are many ways how you can log in into your server, and usually it works for the server part, or like if it's a cloud thing, then you only have the option to log in. You can do, for example, use your Google authentication, you can use Okta, you can use external things, or very simple user and the password. And there are some options I highlighted, like LDAP, Active Directory, OpenID. This is usually handled by IT department. And if we talk about production implementations of BI tool, there's definitely important topic to discuss, how you're gonna authenticate. And usually the organization use their primary method for authentication and authorization. Authorization is different from authentication. So as soon as you authenticate to the service, the next step is authorization. The authorization will help you to understand what kind of permissions your user have. This is example again from Tableau Server Admin. We can set permissions for the group of users, and then we can highlight what permissions they have. And this is authorization. We usually can split in two different areas. The first one is simple access for content. You can see dashboards, you can see folders, but some BI tools give us extra security. It calls row level access. It means you can pass extra parameters into your data models or your SQL to have special condition for filtering your data while you filtering the dashboard. The very common example, like sales dashboard, you have one dashboard and you have lots of sales managers, and every time the sales manager opens the dashboard based on his username, it can filter the given region for this sales manager. The BI server, the very simple task. we need BI server to share our work and our dashboard. And this is an example for SAP Business Object. Probably no one really using it now. Some company, of course, still using SAP Business Object or MicroStrategy, those old enterprise tools, but you can see the components of the server. It has a web app server, right? There's the things there you can load in the browser and all the visuals elements. It has a backend database there you can hold some metadata, the users, the permissions, and it has also some other file source and folders. And this is example of Tableau server. Usually the BI server running many different services and depends on transparency of the BI tool, like in Tableau or SAP Business Object. You can see there are many services running. You can scale up different services. Some cases you can have high availability. But this is a very specific use case for deployment BI tool, BI server in production, and we'll talk more about this, then we'll start doing hands-on with Tableau server. But this is just example that there are many elements. And for example, if you decide to go through certifications for BI server for a particular tool, then you need to know what kind of services, what's their purpose, and especially how to troubleshoot this. And by the way, I have very interesting project related to BI administration. And you can find this in Surfalytics GitHub for data projects for analytics. And this project will teach you about BI server administrations using Tableau, and also you will learn how to get 1 year free license for Tableau. The next one is a connection. Every BI tool connects to the database or data warehouse or even lakehouse in a very similar way as we did in the Model 2 with dbeaver connecting the database. Usually it's using JDBC connectors. And all BI tools, more or less, they connect the same number of connections, and you can connect databases, flat files, or even you can directly connect some services, for example, Salesforce, Google Analytics, and so on. And then visualization templates and tables. There are a specific set of visualization exist. Honestly, you don't need many of them. You need just to know a couple of them. And next lesson will be exactly this. We'll dive into data visualization, everything you need to know, like crash course for data visualization. But the idea that every BI tool give you some kind of templates there. If you have your data in table, you can apply the template and build the bar chart, line chart, or any other charts. For example, on the left side, I have Tableau templates. On the right side, I have the Power BI. And for Power BI, we can add lots of plugins, or even for Tableau, we can create the custom visualization with JavaScript. And then semantic layer. Semantic layer is one of the most important thing in the BI tool. And you can think about in Tableau is the data model or data source, in Power BI data model, in SAP Business Objects universe, in MicroStrategy the schema. This is the thing that magic happens. On left side, you have your data warehouse with tables and columns. On the right side, you have your dashboards with measures and dimensions. Semantic layer is the thing that connects both. It's a kind of like converter that will convert technical things, column names and table names, into meaningful information for the business users, like dimensions and measures. And this is just example of Tableau semantic layer and the Power BI semantic layer. The next thing about semantic layer, then we define our semantic layer, we need to define dimensions and measures. I really like how it's handling in Tableau, but basically every BI tool give you option to split each column of your database. Dimension or measure is basically just the column of your database. So maybe there's some kind of logic or calculation. In Tableau, all dimensions are blue, all metrics are green. The main difference here that dimensions give you context for your metrics. The metrics, they could be aggregated. The simple one is the revenue or number of sales, and then you can see number of sales or your revenue for specific context, for example, by category, by date. For the metrics, there is also one more important thing. The metrics could be additive and non-additive or semi-additive. For example, average metric is very tricky. Then you calculate average in a BI tool. For example, you will start calculate average in the spreadsheet, you get one number, but if you do the similar things in BI tool, due to different levels of aggregations or order of operations, you can get very different result of average. That's the thing. And also, if you have the metric like average per order obviously you couldn't get sum of averages, right? This metric is not additive. For now, just think about that you have dimensions and measures. And dimensions are your product name, your category, your year or the order date. And then the metrics, it's profit, discount. Usually it's either sum or the count. And this is the most popular things. And then in terms of email and sharing things and also the Slack notifications, it's how you can distribute your dashboards. And this is example of email from Tableau. You can build the dashboard and then you can schedule it running, for example, every day, 9 a.m. And the challenge here, you will learn more about this. If your dashboard depends on data warehouse and your data warehouse depends on the pipelines of data extraction, so there's a bunch of layers, it could be the situation that your pipeline failed, but your dashboard is still running on 9 a.m. and you get not full data. There are topics about data quality and how you can ensure the quality and make sure the data warehouse is up to date is very important. And this is example of the scheduling in Tableau. We can schedule the dashboard or we can schedule extract. We'll learn more about internals of Tableau and you will learn more about ways how BI tools can work with the data, and in particular, for example, Tableau or Power BI and some other tools, they always have the options to connect your data as a live connection. Basically, every interaction with your dashboard, and you drag and drop dimensional metrics in Canvas, or then you do the filtering of the data, then it's generating the SQL. Because what BI tool is doing, it's just generating the SQL under hood and sending to your SQL engine. It means the live connection will, every time you change the SQL, it means you change something on your dashboard or filters, it will regenerate the SQL and send it to the database. Obviously, it will work for small data sets, but the huge data sets, it's not really working. That's one of the reasons why we care about data denormalizations and aggregations, and we'll talk more about this on the Model 4. Because the BI tools, they couldn't ingest like terabytes of data and raw level data. That's why they think about how we want to aggregate our data, what's the most important information. And this is more about how you will collect requirements from the business to make sure that you find the balance between performance and value of your dashboard. But here you can see that we have subscription for the dashboard. In Tableau, this is just the schedules. And then we can attach this schedule to the dashboard or to extract in Tableau. It's the way you can query your data once from data warehouse. You will cache inside Tableau, and then users can use it the whole day, not touching the data warehouse. This is very cost efficient, but only in the case if they find that the data is refreshed, usually for the yesterday. Because nowadays, many users, they want to see the data with 1 hour lag or almost real time. Then alerting. Very often we can build custom alerting using just the Python and query our databases. But for example, in Tableau, they have built-in functionality for alerting. It means we can track any kind of metric we want. And in case if this metric up and down, it can trigger the alert and the business users will get notification. This is very good example how you can ensure the quality and just thinking about, oh, is the data up to date? Is the data fresh? Alert solution is very good. And it's very nice that it's built into Tableau. Many BI tools, especially commercial one, even open source like Metabase, and so on, they have API. If you never heard the word API or never work with API, I bet you heard it. API stands for Application Programming Interface. In simple words, API means that there is some kind of endpoint where you can submit your command. For example, TabCMD is Tableau CLI tool, and from the Model 0, you already know how to work with command line, and hopefully you doing it daily and using with the GitHub, because this is very important knowledge to have. And an idea that then you submit the TabCMD command, or you're using the Python to interact your Tableau server, using the code, using the programmatic way to do something in your dashboard. For example, you can trigger refresh of the dashboard or refresh of extract, or you can trigger generating a PDF and download this PDF. This is a programmatic way of doing. And then this is how one machine can talk to another machine through the API interfaces. The thing is that every BI tools, they have some kind of API interface. Recently, I had the questions from the business users. They asked, is there the way to build automation to grab the data from Tableau dashboard and paste it into Google Sheet. The idea that they want to share Google Sheet with external users who doesn't have access to in-house Tableau server. The answer was yes, we can use, for example, the Python. We can query our Tableau server through the API. We can get the data through the Python, for example, in data frame. And then we can use API from Google Sheets to send this data over to Google Sheets and share with the external users. This is just a very simple example. When you work with BI tools, you need to know not only how to build the dashboards, but you need to know other things, how to administer these tools, because this is very competitive story for yourself, because everyone can build the dashboard. Everyone can understand how to do drag and drop the measures, connect the database, but not everyone understands how to administer this. And BI administration, especially BI server administration, is a very important task. And usually no one wants to do this, and you can use this. It's your competitive advantage if you highlight this in your resume, if you will have some experience. And as I said, in Surfalytics I have very good project that actually highlighting step by step what is BI administrator duties and how to be efficient BI administrator, and then you can talk about these during the interview. Then statistical methods and data science, or now we talk about AI and machine learning. This is a very simple example of Tableau forecasting. If we have some time series data, we can just, with one click, we can forecast the data, and we can choose some options in terms of the quality, and we get output quality. You can read the quality output of statistical inference using some kind of logistic regression. Then you probably can say, is this good or not? Well, then I used to work in Amazon. We use it a lot for just forecast sales for the next year as a plan of the budgeting. The Python and R integration, this is example of using the Python. You see, we can just import from library, some kind of library, and then we can use the data from Tableau, sending it to Python, do some kind of transformations, and write back to the Tableau. And this is example of server logs. Again, it's the part of BI server administrator. If something crashing with BI server, or the performance is not optimal, or the users complain, then you need to actually dive deep. And every tool that provides the information that you can download the logs, and you can see what's happening and why. You can see if it's crashed, why the crash is happening. For example, in Tableau, we very often have problems with lack of resources. For example, you have very heavy extracts, and maybe you need to upscale the cluster. Even things related to some issues with the data connections or firewalls and so on. And you can find lots of information in the log. That's it for the lesson 5 of the model 3. And the next lesson we'll talk about data visualization crash course. Thank you.